HinduLounge, a live weekly show on contemporary American Hindu issues hosted by Ajay Shah and Utsav Chakrabarti. This week on HinduLounge, of Skin and Soul, Hindu Dharma and Dark Complexion. The show is a presentation of Hindu Pact USA, a VHPA initiative. With that, on to Hindu Lounge. Perfect. So welcome to Hindu Lounge number 11. And I want to, first of all, I want to welcome everyone who is joining us live. And I'll be, as we always do, I'll be announcing all the people who are joining, and I'll be welcoming them. I'll be reading their comments, and I will be, reading their questions for us to answer. Utsuda, this is Hindu Lounge, and I want to introduce you for people who are just joining us for the first time. So Utsuda is Utsav Chakrabarti. He is the Director of Advocacy and Awareness for World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA, and I am Ajay Shah. I am the Executive Director for Awareness and Advocacy for World Hindu Council of America. And this is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is our weekly Facebook live show that comes on at 11 o'clock Eastern every Sunday, and the corresponding times on every other time zone. And we talk about contemporary American Hindu issues. And we always have an engaging discussion. And we also, the highlights of the show include, we highlight a charity, a Hindu charity of the week. We have a Hindu hater of the week. So we pick a special person who passionately hates Hindu Dharma, and we bestow upon that person the Hindu hater of the week title. Utsuda, in addition to that, I just want to remind everyone that this Hindu Lounge is actually part of the initiative that World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA, has, and that initiative is Hindu Pact. And that is our public affairs, policy research and advocacy initiative for World Hindu Council of America. And as part of that, we talk about contemporary Hindu issues and engagement of Hindus in American public life. So with all of that, Utsuda, topic for today, Utsuda, is very, very contemporary, very relevant. And what we are going to talk about today is how Hindu Dharma looks at the color of skin. And our Dharma Bhumi in Bharat, where Hindu Dharma originated, how in Bharat skin color is looked at, right? So it is very topical. It is very contemporary, because right now in America and around the world, there is a movement, that everyone knows about, following the killing of George Floyd. Black Lives Matter movement has taken off in America. There have been in various countries in the world, ranging from Australia and New Zealand to UK to other European countries to even in Asian countries and in US. This is probably the most important topic other than COVID-19 situation that everyone is facing. And I think it is worthwhile discussing this particular topic, Utsuda, because after all, there is, in addition to this, this being a topical thing, it really, I mean, if we all introspect, really, we want to say that there has been, if you look at the history of, our, human existence, at least for the last few thousand years, we can see that there has always been discrimination of some kind of the other based on skin color in all these societies. And we, after all, even in Bharat, which is our Dharma Bhumi, is really a land of fair and lovely. And for people who don't know what fair and lovely is, it's a skin whitening cream. This is the cream that people apply to make their skin appear, fair, white, and at least a few shades of white, right? And this is we come from, in today's culture in Bharat, and regardless of religion or faith that people are following or dharma that people are following, whether it is Hindu Dharma or religions such as Islam or Christianity, the matrimonial ads in Bharat always say that the person is seeking for someone with a fair skin, or where majority of the movie actors and actresses have a skin tone that is much lighter than the general population. In fact, there is a and it it pervades in all parts of the society. So that the question that we are going to ask today to our viewers and to our readers and who are going to read this eventually is, how do Hindus really perceive skin color? And this is and we're going to trace it from the historic perspective and to the contemporary. And this is a topic that I think will evoke uh, not just the historic part of it, but also some amount of self introspection as to how even the educated Hindus of today, how they are looking at the skin color and why they are doing it, why they have been conditioned to look at the skin color the way they are looking. So with that, I want to invite Utsoda. Utsoda, if you really go back in the history of Hindu Dharma, it was not always like that, right? So let's go back to the creation of the universe as per Hindu Dharma, and let's start with the gods and goddesses of Hindu Dharma. And what do you like, talk about Bhagwan Vishnu? What was the what was the skin color of Bhagwan Vishnu?
Thank you, Ajay Bhai. Thank you for welcoming me to the show. And once again, you have picked up an amazingly relevant topic, something that is more relevant today than ever before. Given the churning of intellectual ideas and information that is going on with regards to skin color and the extension of that with regards to how somebody looks and how people are treated on the basis of their looks. So I think it is very relevant, especially for Hindus, to know. And this is true about Hindus because we have throughout our history, we have had a different understanding of how skin color mattered than we have now. And the reason for that is, we have gone through 1,000 years of colonization, and that affects our mindset significantly. So going back to your point about Bhagwan Vishnu, one of the most important devatas, deities of Hindu Dharma, he is described as Harita Varnam, which is a deep, darker skinned deity. So, you start with Vishnu, you go to Shiva. Shiva is also described as somebody who is darker skinned, and this is something that is very important for our people to know, and because nowadays our society is so guided by the fair and lovely mindset, and it's been there for a while. It's been there for at least 700, 800 years now.
So actually Bhagwan Vishnu is defined at Harita Varnam, which is synonymous with black or dark colored, right?
Correct.
And in fact, most of the Indian deities are dark in color. In fact, if you look at Bhagwan Vishnu's sister is Parvati, the consort of Lord Shiva, Bhagwan Shiva, and she's also often described as dark in color, and one of her swarups is Kali, and Kali is also a dark colored goddess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so that I want to actually, if you don't mind, I'll actually share some slides, and people can actually look at the depiction of Hindu goddesses, and maybe you can comment on it. I want to also welcome some of the people who have joined. So Sheetal Santosh has joined, and Madhuri Dipti Reddy has joined again, and I welcome her. And I am not able to see a lot of other people who are joining, but I know that a lot of people have joined. I just can't seem to see everyone who has joined today. So I welcome everyone who has joined. Swami ji has joined, so I welcome Swami ji and all the others who are joining. Okay, and with that, I will share the slides so people can actually see what we are talking about. So that this, if you can see my slides, you'll see that this is the depiction of Bhagwan Vishnu, and you can see that Bhagwan Vishnu is depicted in dark skin. And if you move on to the depiction of Sri Ram in Valmiki Ramayana, so that Sri Ram has been described as a dark skin god. In fact, the the person who is the so-called villain, who does a lot of bad deeds and who is a Rakshasa, is Ravana, and Ravan is described as fair-skinned. So it is not just that dark skin was considered to be good, but there were villains such as Ravana, Rakshas, who was fair-skinned. And if you go down and you look at Krishna, the word Krishna itself indicates darkness. And it's Sandhya Kal, evening time, where the day meets night. And the depiction of Sri Krishna has always been in mandirs and other places in dark, right? And here is the picture. But on the other hand, Hanuman, the biggest devotee of Bhagwan Ram, Utsoda, is depicted as golden and someone who has a lighter skin, right?
Correct. And if you go to the next slide, I think the next slide I have all three, both Hanuman and Ram together, and look at that depiction. Rama, who is an avatar of Lord Vishnu, is looked upon as a dark-skinned person. Lakshmana is a light-skinned, and Hanuman is light-skinned. So this entire the fair and lovely narrative of this is quite a contrast to that. And if I mean we can look at more slides eventually, and you will see how the depiction has gone. If you skip one more slide and go to the next one, that's slide number 9. You can see this is an early colonial period depiction of Devi Kali, and Kali, as you mentioned, representative of Shakti, is dark. Kali literally, even in modern Hindi language, literally translates to black, and this is divinity. This is divinity from our earliest ancient times, at least going back 2,500 years. So across the geographical spread of Hindu Dharma, all the way from western Caspian Sea region to eastern Malacca, Strait of Malacca, throughout the Asian spread, Hindu deities and divinities are largely depicted as darker skinned. And that is something that is worth noting. I mean, in our culture, it is really sad that now we don't even want to know about this. And culture has changed, but the dharma hasn't.
So that, but there is, it is not always that Hindu Dharma. The greatness of Hindu Dharma, Utsoda, is that it is not one-sided. So we have one of the trinities of Hindu Dharma, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. Bhagwan Shiva, Lord Shiva, is depicted with a white skin, right? And
Correct.
if you look at this picture, there are two things I want to point out, Utsoda, here. One is that Sadashiva is purely white. But of course, he has taken Vish, so his neck is Nilakantha, but he is depicted as a god with white skin. So it is not that we're always saying that, oh, we are worshipping a particular skin color. What Hindus are saying is that God and goddesses can take on multiple, can come in multiple skin colors. In fact, Parvati, Bhagwan, Lakshmi is depicted in 4 different colors. depending on the swaroop or the roop she takes. Her color can be darker when she's with Vishnu, but she can also have a white color and depicting the purity, depicting the uh, the no color. Basically, the purity. What I mean by purity is not pure color, but purity in sense of I have no color. I am part of the this openness, the vastness,
Transcendental in
transcendent nature of things, and
correct.
that transcendent nature of things is depicted in Lakshmi Devi. So
Correct.
basically, not just so what we're trying to say here is that the skin color was never really considered that important. The gods and goddesses who are depicted in a lighter skin and gods and goddesses who are depicted in darker skins. In fact, so that if you look at the picture here of Bhagwan Shiva in Ardhanarishwara Roop, you can see that the two skin colors, the dark and the light skin colors in the same deity, is the Ardhanarishwar Swaroop, where Bhagwan Shiva and Parvati are depicted in a single in the single representation.
Correct. And I mean, that's a topic for another discussion. It not only transcends the skin color, but also the gender binaries that are usually very set in stone for religions of the world. So it is, and Shiva has been depicted even in darker tones in many parts of the Indian subcontinent. So I think this obsession with light and dark is something that we need to look into as we progress in this presentation and understand where it comes from. Now that we have set the tone from where it originates, where there is actually no the color is not relevant. It is on each, both sides have representation. In fact, all sides have representation in depiction of deities.
So, and you bring up a really good point, Utsoda. So the question is always going to be that actually let me continue that on a little bit more, and that will give you a little bit better insight into this. There is in a Sanskrit poet Bhavabhuti in 8th century wrote Shamalam Mangalam Shvetam Amangalam. So there was at one time there was a thought in at least for one poet, and that representing the contemporary Hindu culture at that given time. He said that black is auspicious. In his play he wrote that, right? And not only that, until the 12th century, all our deities were made of black stones. All the agamas of Jain Dharma were carved out of black stone. Bhagwan Mahavir, were the last Tirthankar or the last teacher of the Jain Dharma, who predates Gautam Buddha by about 80 years, in generally the same region of Bharat. He is described as Shamala Varni, a dark color. And Gautam Buddha, in the Pali scriptures, Pitakas, is also described as a dark complexion person. So, in summary, our scriptures and literatures are full of depiction of the all of the gods, goddesses, great deities, great sages, saints. They come in all different colors, and the question is, how did we get from there to the land of fair and lovely? What happened?
So it's a good point that you brought about. You mentioned Bhavabhuti, because Bhavabhuti, the Sanskrit scholar and writer, he lived around the 8th century, And right around the 6th century, which is about 7 or 8 generations before Bhavabhuti, 6 generations before Bhavabhuti, the subcontinent of India had a huge wave of invasions coming from the northwest of what we call today the Huns, or the Hephthalites, the white Huns. And the arising geopolitics out of it, uh, in my opinion, shapes the perception of the Hindus living in the time of 7th and 8th century, when Bhavabhuti wrote this point about darker being better and lighter being bad, because the Huns were way light skinned. I mean, that's why the word white Huns is used to depict them. They belong to a ethnic genetic stock that was very light skinned, and that their invasion and the memories of their invasion, and more importantly the defeat of their invasion, defeat and absorption of the invasion by the larger Hindu society, shows that the Hindus looked at lighter skinned people in those days, around that period of time, to be much more inferior to them. So that is something that needs to be understood. So I will contrast this looking down upon the light skinned people, who most likely have been somewhat defeated and absorbed into the Hindu society. And then I will contrast it to a later period where things started changing in the other direction, where light skinned people are superior. And we continue to live in those times, but or at least the perception of light skinned people are superior. So but this period of 5th century to 8th and 9th century, 7th, 8th, 9th century, when the Hindus had absorbed these lighter skinned people into their society, after, I would say, defeating them in most cases, the perception of darker being superior than light, as noted by Bhavabhuti's writings, is very interesting.
And this Utsada is the slide that shows the image of a depiction of a Hun coin as well as a Hun warrior, right?
Yeah. So the coin, I think, is the Hun. I think it's Mihirakul. So Mihirakul was the Hun king who invaded what is present day Rawalpindi and conquered that area. And he's depicted with a tall nose and very very European features, and this is a graphic depiction from, I believe it's a Chinese comic novel, toys of how the Huns would have looked like. And so if you go to the next slide, I want to show you how the other side looked at us. So this is an early Persian painting of an Indian ambassador, a Hindu ambassador, in the court of the Sasanian king in Persia. So this is pre-Islamic Persia, and if you see this painting, he's in the court teaching Arabs and Europeans, and of course Persians, how to play chess. And this is one of the paintings that we show usually to that how chess moved from the Indian subcontinent, from amongst the Hindu communities to the Persian, the Sasanian, pre-Islamic Persians. So look at how the guy in the red cloth, the ambassador, the Hindu ambassador in the Persian court, his skin complexion as compared to everybody else there. So Hindus have been depicted as dark in the world to the west of us, in the Persian and then further west, pretty commonly and pretty regularly.
And so that actually brings me to, and let me remind people who are just joining us, and several people have joined. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see everyone's name today, but I know that we have several people watching us live. So for people who are just joining us, this is Hindu Lounge, episode number 11, with Utsav Chakrabarti, Ajay Shah. We are part of an initiative of BHPA called Hindu Pact. And today we are discussing topic for the day is of soul and skin, and we are talking about the skin complexion and Hindu Dharma, and we are trying to address the question about how Hindus look at the skin, how they've looked at the skin color historically, and how they look at the skin color contemporaneously today. And what has changed in Hindu Dharma when we started with all the gods and goddesses of multiple colors, skin colors being depicted all as even, all as equals. And in fact, in later part of the history, where there was a period of time where darker skin was considered to be superior, and then became a time where lighter skin was superior. And what are the historic events that led Hindus to become skin color conscious? At one, historically, dharma wise, in Hindu Dharma, we are supposed to, from the dharmic perspective, we look at the soul. We look at the Atman, and that is the more appropriate word than soul. But we look at the Atma, and Atma has no color, and we are part of a big vastness. Um, in fact, Utsoda, it reminds me of a poem by very famous Gujarati poet Narsi Mehta, who is well known for Vaishnavajan, which is a bhajan or a religious song that is popular all over the world because Mahatma Gandhi popularized it. He has written another poem where he says, Akhila Brahmandama Ekatu Shri Hari Jujave Rupe Ananta Bhase. That means in entire universe, not this world, not this country, not this city, not this town, entire universe, Akhila Brahmandama Ekatu Shri Hari. Oh God, you are the only one God, and you appear in different forms, in different human beings and in different representations of gods. Because this is, if you look at everyone is manifestation of the divine, then what he's trying to say is that, look, we are all part of this same big divinity, and this divinity is formless, this divinity is colorless, but the divinity is manifested in all different skin colors, all different ways, shapes, and forms. And that is really the unifying principles. And now you get this invasions, and all of a sudden, so it changes the way Hindus are starting to look at themselves, and Hindus are looking at other people, right?
Absolutely. And it is not just the invasions, because I want to contrast here with the Hun invasion versus the Islamic invasions. See, if you look at in the post 9th century Indian subcontinent, when the first time the Turkic Muslims started, actually conquering and holding land in the Indian subcontinent and started converting Hindus to Islam. Two people, one of the most famous people that people in the Indian subcontinent would have heard of, they may not know exactly who that individual was and how he was, but they have heard about him. And that's Amir Khusro. So Amir Khusro was this mixed Muslim author, poet, advisor to the ruler. And Amir Khusro, his father was a Turkic Muslim, and his mother was a Hindu Rajput who was converted to Islam. And so this is his depiction of dark people. It's Sahaya Fame Iblis Ast. It's black is the color of Satan, Shaitan, as Muslims would call it. Another, typical Turkic Muslim perspective from the same period, from the same era, going back to Khorasan, which is further west within the Islamic kingdom, not directly in the Indian subcontinent, is Jalaluddin Rumi, a very famous guy. I mean, you can literally Google any quote online and attribute it to Jalaluddin Rumi, and you will get away with it. The world is round, the earth is round, and you will find a quote online which will say Jalaluddin Rumi said it. So that's how misrepresented he is globally. So he depicted Hindus as dark, unclean dogs. This is a Turkic guy from Khorasan, Western Afghanistan and Iran, that area. Islamic philosopher, very, very popular guy. That's his depiction of Hindus, dark, unclean dogs. So this is the time period when it is not that the Hindu society is actually learning, is being taught by the conquerors that darker is bad. You are dark, you are a slave. And that's when, in my opinion, that's the inflection point. Because even before that, the Huns did invade, and the Huns were very powerful people. They conquered half of Europe. But the Huns were absorbed within the Hindu society, and their perspective, their narrative was defeated. And that's why the Hindus started considering themselves in the 5th and 6th century that darker is better, lighter is not that good. But later on, you see the opposite of it. And once the Islamic invasion starts winning and conversion starts happening, the darker is bad. And because I gave examples of these two guys. I think they're very relevant.
So that brings me to the trivia question of the week. And the trivia question of the week, Utsauda, is who are or who were or who are the Yavanas? Okay, who are the Yavanas? And honor system here, don't Google, don't look at Wikipedia, and just based on your current knowledge, tell us who were Yavanas.
Yeah, write a comment on the under the video.
Yeah, on the Facebook, please. Yeah, write a comment on the Facebook, and please follow the honor system. Utsauda, I want to read a comment from Amit Mali, and Amit ji has said that Hindus never discriminated because of color, and he said, but Christians do because they have separate churches, historic churches, for people who have black skin and people who have white skin. So, Utsauda, would you like to comment on that?
Well, I mean, it goes back. It goes way back. It's, I mean, in the last 400 years, 500 years, when slavery was an institutionalized system within the church itself, the church profited from slave trade globally. All denominations of churches, both the Protestants and the Catholics. So obviously they developed, they were racist. I mean, you cannot look at it in any other way. If it offends somebody, I guess we have to deal with it. But that was the reality. But even before that, if you go back further, going back all the way to the Byzantine period and the Holy Roman Empire, I mean, they were mostly Eurocentric kingdoms who looked upon anybody who was darker skinned as inferior. And, they did, that's why when they captured and conquered South America, the native population in South America, who were actually far more advanced than many of these Europeans were in other fields, in agricultural and in science, they were darker skinned and they were dehumanized in that way. And, we all know what happened with the slave trade and how that ruined and destroyed Africa, continues to affect Africa badly even today. So, yeah, it is institutionalized amongst early Christian period onwards, among Christian denominations. And it was natural that once slavery was banned, there would be segregation in churches. And that was very true. For 90% of its history, both Islam and 99% of their history, both Islam and Christianity have actually sanctioned slavery. So not a surprise.
So that then, historically speaking, then came when, during the, I think during the time after when the Islam started taking hold of India, the depiction of the deities in the mandirs also started changing, right? After 12th and 13th and 14th century, the deities were no longer depicted as dark in a lot of the temples. Some traditional temples, especially in South, continue to depict deities, even in the newer temples, dark. But in a lot of other places in Bharat, our Dharma Bhumi, the color of the deities in the mandir started changing, correct?
That is true. And the perception and depiction of heroes amongst Hindus in the entire subcontinent, in the Indian subcontinent. I use the word subcontinent instead of India, because what is India today is the geographical India.
Of course.
Wasn't what was
Of
geographically
course,
near.
I was referring to Akhanda Bharat.
Right, right.
That is the undivided Bharat
Yeah,
as it is,
yeah.
as it has to be.
Civilizational continuum. It's a civilizational
Exactly,
entity.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So that depiction has changed since, since the Turkic invasions, and how societies within the Indian subcontinent, Hindu societies, started changing the way they looked at their heroes and their deities. So that is very true. And lighter skin became cooler, and that was a process that continued all the way until the British came, and we know where we are now.
So I was reading I was reading a research paper in a legal review journal from St. Louis, University, or WashU, basically,
Yeah, it's
in St.
Washington
Louis.
University in St. Louis. That's
In
why I did
your
my
alma
grad school.
mater, your alma mater, so WashU, right?
Yeah.
And in the law journal at WashU, one of the Indian authors from Reva University has a really well-studied article on, Bharat, Hindu Dharma, and color of the skin, and she narrates a really eye-opening incident. So she goes to this national museum in Bharat, and where all the historic artifacts are, and she looks at all the deities, and the carvings and other things are all made of, all the gods, goddesses are depicted in dark color. And then she goes to the museum store, and all the gift items there, which are god and goddess statues and other things, they're all in white stone, white paintings, and gods and goddesses depicted in lighter skin. And when she goes and asks these people as to why the discrepancy, and she is told that, well, this is what people buy.
Correct.
So what do you have to say to that?
So that's why I said that you can clearly see a demarcation. The post-colonization of the Indian subcontinent has people yearning and wanting to be lighter. Post-Islamic invasion, European conquest, colonization. Pre-Islamic invasion, there were conquests, there were movements of people. It was still there. There is a clear demarcation. You see Hindus and Dharmic communities either giving equal weightage to different skin, or the skin color not being relevant, because light skin, dark skin mixing together, and at a small period of time darker being considered better than light. And as I said, that was because the lighter skinned people were defeated and absorbed within the Hindu society, and in the northwestern region within the Buddhist societies. So in my understanding, this is a clear and simple way to break it down, how and why this happened. And today, we are at our colonized worst. We love white skin.
And it's baffling, because there's at some point the political narrative takes over, and that actually ends up causing even more harm than good, because it divides people further. It divides people on the basis of caste and color and jati, varna, all of that. In fact, we discussed last week, we talked about or the week before, we talked about varna, right? Varna is supposed to be, and as per dharmic tradition, varna is based on characteristics. But the varna, the other meaning of the varna is color, and people have, and it was never intended to be that, okay, this is the societal division based on the color of the skin. There has been also the research that shows that even among jatis, which are traditional, hereditary, family-based professions, not to be confused with varna, which is a characteristic of a nature of a person and not based on faith, and people can have multiple varnas at a given time. Even among that jati, there are people who have different colors and similar colors, and people have done studies on this. And for example, it would say that people in the there's a color difference, melanin content difference, and because of that, the skin color difference between traditional professions where people spend between men and women. because men spent a lot of time outside the house, in farming or in other professions. Whereas in professions where people were traders and all of them, that dark skin and similar skin coloration for both men and women. So a lot of the coloration of India, based on the the climate and the epigenetics and things like that, and not really based on hereditary and all that. But when it comes to politics, in order to divide the Hindus, uh, people have been, people are taking advantage of, we have already, the divisions that have been created by different skin tones, divisions that have been created because of colonialization, and the contemporary way in which the culture looks at what is beauty.
Correct. Correct. So I think you touched upon multiple points here, and one thing that we all need to understand is that it is not just specific to the Indian subcontinent. Most societies and cultures and peoples that have had a long period of intermingling of different ethnicities with different melanin contents, if I could put it as simply as that, they all develop this mixed sociocultural understanding of things. And in Western societies, especially in Europe and America, which to a large extent have been dominating the global intellectual discourse for the last 300 years, 200 years or so, that mixing has happened much later. So for example, in America, this mixing of melanin content people from different ethnicities is just happening right now. So that is a conversation that dominates our society in America very a lot, because they haven't seen this before. People came from really pure white under stocks, pure black stocks, pure brown, whatever you want to call them. Nowadays you have to be very careful about what you call somebody, because somebody can get pissed off because of that. So this mixing is happening in America right now, and it's been only a generation old. So that's why everything is a very high decibel conversation all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas in societies in like ours, where whether it is the Indian subcontinent, whether it is even the Middle East, I would say pre-Islamic Middle East. Post-Islamic Middle East is different, but pre-Islamic Middle East, pre-Islamic Mediterranean region, this intermixing has happened. Pre-Christian Mediterranean region, the Greek and the Roman Empire, and the Gauls and North Africa. This intermixing has happened over thousands of years, and there is a far more calmer approach towards it until colonization happened. And that's why I go back to this clear demarcation of post-Islamic periods of these areas and pre-Islamic periods of these areas. And once colonization began, then this whole thing got repeated, and sound decibels are now high everywhere.
Right. And so there's this politician Udit Raj in India, and he of course he has his own political agenda, and this is how he puts it. Okay, the story of Ramayana, the most popular Indian epic, is all about victory of fair-skinned and noble Ram over black and evil Ravan. Now, Valmiki Ramayana and the Tamil version of Ramayans depict Bhagwan Shri Ram and Ravan exactly opposite.
Correct.
So what is are people so ignorant that they would just buy what Udit Raj is selling, and then that gets propagated and gets written up in academic journals in America and gets presented to the Congress, because there is a narrative that people are trying to build that casteism is racism, colorism, and colorism is racism, and that's a way to again denigrate Hindus. Is that what's going on? Because if you really look at Ramayana, and if you look at all versions of Ramayana, which have stayed pretty remarkably consistent through 5,000 years, always depict Sri Ram as dark-skinned and Ravana as fair-skinned, right?
Yeah, Dashananam
What is the politics?
Gauravarnita.
So what is the politics of this? in
Well,
America and in India.
so the thing is that I'm pretty sure that most people, it's about information, it's about education and information, it's about creating awareness, it's about having the loudest loudspeaker and the bully pulpit. And unfortunately, in today's race driven narrative in the West, this works. Anybody who wants to play this game, they play it according to their own narrative. And Udit Raj, for example, probably has never read the Ramayana. I mean, how many people in our audience? Let me ask this question. Let people guess how many people in our audience have actually read the Valmiki Ramayana. I mean, this is our fault. The reason Udit Raj can say, and it's not just Udit Raj, it's the whole this ultra leftist, narrative builders who are across the world. I mean, they are in American universities and they're in Indian university. They play the same game everywhere. Uh, they will do this thing. They have built it up and they will keep repeating it again and again. And our people will eventually start believing in it. And that's what has happened over the last couple of generations. So if you ask an average Hindu in India or even in America, like, hey, Ravana is this dark-skinned demon and Ram is this light-skinned Aryan hero. I'm using the word Aryan in quotes here. And everybody will say, yeah, but that may be the right thing because that has been repeated for 2 generations by our leftist intellectuals because it fits the colonial narrative. So the Valmiki Ramayana says, Dashananam Gauravarnita iti Ram Shyamalam. Dashanan, as the then-headed Ravana, is fair-skinned and Ram is dark-skinned. So it's exactly the opposite, actually, the way our leftists would, represent it. Or I shouldn't use the word leftist because they are people who are pseudo-leftists. They're just opportunists. And so that is, see, there is this political discourse is driven by other agendas and we fit into it somewhere. And it's going to be used against us. It's a fault line. And we help it.
Look, so that I don't think any of us, right? Any of us in the right mind would ever think of discrimination based on any criteria, whether it is skin color or whether it's based on varna, based on jati, based on anything that differentiates people, whether it's sexual orientation, whether it is race, or anything that you can imagine. Hindu Dharma, in its purest, would never condone discrimination of any kind against anyone. And I think if there is one thing that we need to do better, so that is that we have to be more vocal in telling the world that we as Hindus are absolutely against, not just against any form of discrimination in any way, but we stand for equality because not just as because our not just because it's today's environment or today's today's global situation, but historically for thousands of years our dharma, our Hindu dharma has taught us that we are all part of the same Brahman. We are part of the same with the same divinity. We are representation of the same divinity. And I sit here as do you as a representative of World Hindu Council of America, and I take the blame. I say that we have not done enough to tell the world this part of openness and inclusiveness of Hindu Dharma.
Correct. And we deserve to get the blame for it as a community, as people who want to represent the community. To be honest, that's the only fault we have, because the bully pulpit is controlled by somebody else. So somebody else keeps telling you all the time that color, white is better, black is bad, and it keeps telling you for 2 generations. You start following it. At the end of the day, you are basically what you have been taught to be. And when we were colonized, that's where we were taught to be. So it is incumbent upon us to dig up our own past. And I would urge everybody to read the Valmiki Ramayana. I would urge everybody to read Bhavabhuti. If you haven't heard of this before, Go Google him up, read his writings. You might as well learn Sanskrit on the way, and and see how Bhavaputi thought about the world in his 7th century. And he is representative of the Hindu society for a long that depict. It is 1,000 years of representation of the Hindu society, not a short period of time. Most
So
civilizations don't last that long.
yeah. So I want to welcome, they joined a while ago, but Mahendra Sapa, Tejal Shah, so both of them welcome to Hindu Lounge. The trivia question of the day is still, please, honor system, don't look at Wikipedia, don't Google this, but who are the Yavanas? Okay, who are the Yavanas? That's the trivia question of the day. Utsada, as we come towards the end of this part, I think we would, I think let us make sure, uh, let us make sure that we do our part in the dialogue on race, not just in America, but around the world, and make sure that the Hindu view on race, the all-encompassing Hindu view on race prevails. So with that, I want to end the discussion on this particular topic of the week. I'm sure that this is not the first time we are going to talk about color and Hindu Dharma and race and Varna, Jati, etc. I think this is a topic that we are going to keep revisiting, because this is a topic that is unfortunately going to come up many, many times, as long as there are divisions in the society based on some criteria or the other. We'll be discussing this. Once again, for people who are just joining us, this is Hindu Lounge, Hindu Lounge episode number 11. We talked about soul and skin color. So how does Hindu Dharma look at skin color? And we had a really great discussion. We talked about historically how gods and goddesses were depicted, to how the perception of the cultural perception of the skin color in the Hindu society changed over the period of last 2, 3, 4,000 years. And then we talked about how the politics of it is played out, and what Hindus need to do in today's world in order to bring about the equality and color blindness in many ways, to achieve achieve harmony in the world. Utsada, the topic, the trivia question of the week, still outstanding. We'll tackle it last. Who were the Yavanas? And no looking up Google, no doing a Wikipedia search or any of that. Honor system, okay? Last two things in our show, as always: the Hindu Seva of the week and Hindu Hater of the week. Utsada, I have the Hindu Seva of the week, and I'll ask you about the Hindu Hater of the week.
Okay, so the Hindu hater of the week this week.
Well, Hindu Hater comes last. Remember,
Okay.
that's what people stay tuned for. So we have to hold the audience till the last minute.
I thought you want to give the bad news first. I thought you want to give the bad news first.
So this is the sequence, Utsada: Hindu Seva Act of the week, Hindu Hater of the week, and then the answer to the trivia question of the week. Okay, that's the sequence of events here. So, Hindu Seva Act of the week is not really a particular Seva act, but it is something, but it's more than that. And it's not just one organization, but it's more than that. So Utsava today, as a live event, and we have posted this on our Twitter, International Day of Yoga is being celebrated in New Jersey and other places. And it's streamed live. Tejal Ben, who has just joined us, had a role in organizing it. It is co-sponsored by Seva International, by Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, by World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA, our own organization, and a dozen other organizations. And this is the Seva activity for the health of all the people around the world. And these organizations have put in a lot of effort, a lot of volunteer hours to make sure that that everyone in our society, in all over America, uh, not just the 20 million people who are practicing yoga in America today, but other people, the remaining 280 million, remaining 300 million people who are not practicing yoga, get introduced to the yogic practices, the yoga practices, and they improve their health. So for that act, all the Hindu organizations, starting from VHPA to Sangh, Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh, to Seva International, to um, all the other Hindu organizations who are involved, including Art of Living Foundation and others, I want to commend them for taking yoga to the masses in America. And for that, International Yoga Day live streamed event that is happening right now is our Seva activity of the week. So that on to you for the Hindu hater of the week, and then finally we'll answer the question because nobody has yet answered it. Who are the Yavanas? So Utsada, who do you have as the Hindu hater of the week?
Okay, so the Hindu hater of the week is the person who destroyed the restaurant called India Palace, and I don't see the exact city there.
It is in Santa Fe,
Santa
New
Fe,
Mexico.
New Mexico. And I was looking at the picture of the destruction here, and the person who did it, or the group of people who did it, are not just haters, but they are also ignorant. And the reason why I say they're ignorant is because amongst all the vile and hateful things they did by destroying this restaurant and using hateful graffiti on it, they also blamed Hindus of being ISIS. So it's like blaming a European Jewish person of being part of the Nazi party.
So,
So
there was more to it. They actually beheaded a statue of a goddess as well.
that's correct. And
And
so it's not just pure hate. It's pure hate mixed with pure ignorance, and that's the level of I don't know what words to use, with other than the fact that these people really, I think if they are ever caught, the people who destroyed this Indian restaurant in Santa Fe, New Mexico, if they are ever caught, besides the punishment and the the prison or whatever the law enforcement is going to give them, I would urge that we be given the opportunity to actually talk to them and educate them. I believe in change of hearts, and especially when somebody that ignorant, and I'm not going to use four-letter words here, but we would want to have a chance to educate these people and give them a better opportunity to know the world.
so, Utsoda, I want to also say that another initiative of World Hindu Council of America, American Hindus Against Defamation, the premier and Hindu organization that fights Hindu defamation, AHAD, has condemned this act of vandalism, and AHAD has also demanded that FBI and the local law enforcement investigate this as hate crime. Our last information is that the local police is indeed investigating this particular incident as a hate crime. Utsoda, I also want to mention that Madhuri Dipti Reddy has said that she agrees with you, and she says that we need to educate these people, these perpetrators, on our culture and our tradition. And Tejal Ben has said that the other organizations that are involved in the International Day of Yoga in New Jersey, the celebrations that are ongoing right now and are streaming right now on YouTube, include Vihangam Yoga as well as Gayatri Parivar. So I acknowledge both of those organizations as well. And finally, Utsoda, on to you. Trivia question of the week. Who are the Yavanas? So Utsada, take it away. Who are the Yavanas?
So I presume we did not get any response on who are the Yavanas.
No, this was a tricky question.
No, it shouldn't be that tricky. Anyway, so the Yavanas are the what in the English language are being described as the Indo-Greeks. So they are the descendants of the governors and the Greek military and political leadership from what is present day, eastern Iran, western Afghanistan, and northern Pakistan. Earlier on, it used to be part of the Hindu, quote unquote, Indian civilizational entity, and they were called Indo-Bactrians, and they were basically a ethnic mixture of Greeks and the local native Hindu populations in that region, and they are described in the with the Sanskrit word Yavana, or the Pali word Yona. So later on, for people who are aficionados of history, you will hear the name Yona amongst a lot of common Indian names also. I mean, one of the famous historians from Kashmir is named Yona Raja. So that's modification of the Sanskrit word Yavana, and they are the Indo Greeks from Bactria.
And with that, Utsoda, that is a wrap today. Thank you very much again to all our viewers and listeners who have joined us. I want to remind everyone that this particular episode, like all others, will be posted on our YouTube channel. That is YouTube.
One more thing I wanted
Sure.
to add. So for people who still live in India, there is a very famous Yavana, a statue dedicated to the Hindu deity Vishnu by a famous Yavana, and it's in the central Indian city of Vidisha. So maybe people should answer this question down there. Name the pillar in Vidisha which was made by a famous Yavana.
And that will be the question for next week. And we'll answer that question next week.
Yes.
And with that, so that I just want to remind everyone that this episode, like all other episodes, are posted on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/VHPA videos. That's youtube.com/VHPA videos. And we will post this later tonight or tomorrow morning. You should be able to see it. So please, if you have missed it, your friends and family want to watch this recording, ask them to go to YouTube and watch this. Again, this is Hindu Lounge. We come live every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. And I really want to thank everyone for joining this. It has been a great, great conversation with Soda. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our viewers for joining us. We are still working on getting this on as a podcast on Apple Podcast. You should see that soon. And our website is also in the works. So with that, once again, thank you very much. On behalf of Utsav Chakrabarti, I'm Ajay Shah. Namaste.
Namaste, everybody.